Welcome to the Coach's Table podcast, where coaches come to grow personally and professionally through real-world application and online education. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Excuse me. Wow. We're halfway through January. It's insane how fast the new year goes. It's insane how fast everything goes on, and the days just fly by. But we're into conference play for basketball, and it's winding down the season. It's one game at a time, 2 games a week, and it's a lot of fun. But guys, today I have a repeat guest on. She's amazing. I really, really enjoyed talking to her. I think this is her 3rd time on, which is fantastic. But she has a ton of great perspectives, knowledge, information, and she's been super successful, not just from her coaching perspective, but she's written now 2 books. At the time that she came on first, it was just 1 book, and she's just absolutely amazing. Before I introduce her, guys, do us a huge favor, okay? Share the show. That's the only way the show grows. So if you're listening on Spotify, do us a huge favor. Just hit the 3 buttons that are in the top right corner, and you can share the show. It puts out great karma for everybody else. But the biggest thing is if you could leave a review. The review is the most important thing because it tells other people that this is worth consuming, that this is worth your time, effort, and energy to listen to. So do us a huge favor and do that. I would appreciate that very much. Without further ado, Miss Erica Suter, what is going on?
Hello, thanks for having me again, Kendrick. This is always fun. And yeah, I just love talking everything business and social media and strength and conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun talking to you too because you have a great perspective. Not only that, but like you're doing it. One, I think that is like a huge hallmark to being like, is this somebody I should listen to? In regards to whether that's social media, in regards to whether that's strength and conditioning, in regards of like you've written now 2 books and you've done a lot of things that coaches think they want to do, right? And they talk about doing it, but like you're actually doing it. And I think that perspective in itself and that, hey, like I've done this, I've tried this, is something that a lot of people at times don't put as much stock in as they should. It's like if somebody is where you want to be, you should probably listen to them. If they are not, then you should probably question like, do I want to listen to this person or not?
I agree. And I think it is important for strength coaches to just really be intentional with like who they're following or who their mentors are. And if it's not me, like someone else who's like really living and practicing their business or their craft in a way that you aspire to. And I
Mhm.
really think that that is so important to have that mentorship and that role model.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last 2 times you were on, we've talked a lot about business. We talked a lot about, getting clients. We talked about retaining them and things of that nature. Today's gonna be a little different. One of the things that I see, one of the things that I try to do is, particularly on social media, is stand out, is be different, is to not copy what other people are doing. And I heard a quote the other day. I think you would greatly appreciate this. Um, I was listening to a podcast, and the guy that was speaking said that he tries to create content that nobody else can create because if anybody else can do it, for instance, the example that we were talking about offline, like here's how to do a split squat. Well, everybody can do that content. So it's not unique, it's not different, it's not, hey, Erica did this and everybody knows that. And it really kind of struck a chord with me because I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of things out there that anybody can put content on. The point that he was originally making was go do things people aren't doing and go do things because then you have the perspective to talk about things that people aren't talking about. But if you're just always talking about here's how to do a split squat, here's how to do this, here's how to do that, it gets overlooked very much. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. I think what we're seeing now in strength and conditioning on social media is everyone is becoming copies of one another.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's because strength coaches have like a lack of creativity or maybe they just like don't know what to post, but
Yeah.
it does seem like there's a lot of the like exercise tutorials, like here's how to do a split squat or here's what the Palloff press works on. And it's just I hate to say it, but it's just like so boring and it doesn't like draw me in. Like it's something
Yeah.
you can like Google or this is information your strength coach should have already told you in their sessions with you. It's not like you
Yeah.
should just like also get that on social media.
Yeah.
So I think when strength coaches are looking to stand out on social media, they should really think, okay, what does my audience need? Do I need to give them something like deeply educational, or do I need
Mhm.
to like slip in some maybe like entertaining content in there? And I think people truly need something to relate to. And it's that old saying, like, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are really craving a connection with someone
Mhm.
and just being able to relate to a coach. And I'll give you an example. So, back in the fall, I did this whole behind the scenes series for how I like wrote my book.
Mm.
And the reels were anywhere from, okay, how did I edit the book, how did I design the cover, and
Mhm.
those got good traction, but the episode that got the most traction was actually like kind of a depressing story. And I was just talking about how like during my writing I got like very chronically ill,
Mm.
and I would like write my book in like doctors' offices while I was waiting on like lab test results and x-rays.
Mm.
And that episode probably got like 12,000 views. Like everyone was
Wow.
commenting and sharing and messaging me. And I think it's not that people like depressing stuff. I think
Right.
people were just like, wow, like that is relatable. Like I've definitely been through hard times and I want to know how to get out of it like she
Mhm.
did, or I want
Mhm.
to know how to do something I'm passionate about when times do get hard. So I think that was like a really interesting experiment to like
Mhm.
see like what people relate to. So they don't always like the X's and O's of everything, but they
Yeah.
like the stories and just like that personal connection. So I found that really interesting during that time.
That is very interesting. Like, because it's the behind the scenes, there's the emotion invoked in it. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't fake being at a doctor's office. You can't fake, I mean, I guess you could, but why would you, right? But like, you know, but there's the relatability component. You are attempting to accomplish this, or you're working on it, the unseen hours, if you will, right? That nobody wants to talk about, or that nobody wants to showcase, I should say, but it makes you super relatable. It makes it so much to be like, wow, I can understand, what she endured through that process. Do you kind of, with that, do you think more coaches should be on camera more, should film more frequently? Because that's one thing that I see, and at times I'm victim of it too, is more so behind the camera than in front of the camera, even though I do like being in front of a camera. But like, a lot of coaches I see are always behind the camera. Do you think being in front of the camera and speaking to the audience, or just being seen by the audience, is extremely important as well?
Absolutely. I think that increases your connection with your audience, and it just adds that personal touch, and they get
Yeah.
to know who you are and not necessarily your program. And I remember seeing a tweet from Mike Boyle, I think it was a month ago, and it said personality matters more than programming.
Mm,
Something along those lines. And I totally can see that. And it's not to say like we shouldn't be diligent with how we write strength programs,
yeah.
but personality is what's really going to get athletes to buy into it, enjoy coming to training with you, or
Hmm.
strangers on the internet wanting to train with you. So I think it's absolutely important to get in front of the camera, whether it's on like Instagram stories or an Instagram live. And I personally use Instagram stories to show more of like my personal life. So
Hmm.
like this week, it's all like wedding
Yeah.
preparation. Like, what
Yeah.
is my dress gonna look like? I just got my nails done. But then like on the actual feed, it's more of the, okay, here's what my athletes are doing. Here are their wins. Here's a behind the scenes on the book, and it's more of like the X's and O's of everything. But I think it's good to have both on your page. And then
Yeah.
like an Instagram live is nice. And I honestly should be doing more of them. And I think more coaches should, because a live is not pre-recorded. It's like your
Yeah.
authentic self, and
Yeah.
your followers are choosing to join the live
Correct.
to hang out with you. It's like they're hanging out with you right then and there. So I think
Mm.
that's really cool. And there have actually been times where I'll get on a live and I'll like just tell people, hey, you want to join? Like request to join. And a random
Yep.
kid from like California will join the
Yeah.
live and we just
Yeah.
have a conversation. Like, and whether they become a client or not, it doesn't matter, but they'll just ask like, hey, what are some like speed tips, or
Hmm.
and it's like really helpful for them. It's almost like a live like consult call.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for coaches to definitely put themselves out there like that and not just hide behind a keyboard. I love Twitter, and I know you do too. I know a lot of strength coaches do,
Yeah.
but the character limit is very limiting and people don't see nuances in
Hmm.
tweets.
Hmm.
And I also see a lot of Twitter used for just arguments. And I know strength coaches will be like, well, it's good to have like debate and back and forth. And
Sure.
I'm like, you don't want to debate. You want to prove that you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And usually after a conversation like this, you still stay stuck in your ways. You're not
Correct.
learning crap from these people. You
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
in this for your ego. Like don't
Yeah.
fool yourself.
Yeah.
So I see Twitter being used for just yeah, just all these arguments. And it's like, man, that's so much time wasted when you can really be connecting with like the people you actually want to connect to, and that's potential athletes.
Yeah. It's speaking on Twitter, I'm a fan. I like Twitter.
Mhm.
But I tell you, I personally don't engage in any of those because it's just too much. And it's like you said, it's people don't want to be open-minded. They just want to tell you why they're right. And it's like, cool, good for you. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like I'm not changing your mind. My character limit is limited. I'm not paying more money for it. And
And
so
most people, like, you don't see them leave one of those argument threads saying, "Oh, you were right. I learned
yeah, yeah, yeah,
something." No one
yeah.
said that. I maybe I've seen that
Yeah.
once. So
It's
like
it's
seriously, people are fooling themselves. They're like, "Oh, I
yeah.
love healthy debate." I'm like, "No, you're not healthy
No, you
debating."
don't. No, you know what they end up doing? They end up blocking that person. They
Yeah.
end up like muting them. Like it's so funny because it's like I'll talk to other strength coaches, not to out y'all, but they'll be like, oh my gosh, you don't know how many people I have muted on Twitter. And I'm like, well, okay, like
Yeah.
the hell, man. Like, I mean, cool, because if you don't want to see their stuff, I get that. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like, I don't know. So I just don't engage in it. And I encourage other people to not engage with. Actually, what I
Mhm.
encourage you to do is if you do disagree, jump on the phone or FaceTime with them and go from there, right? Well, I think the
Yes.
problem is we just want to be tweeting out all this stuff without an understanding, without, and it's just like just take the time to talk to them. Like literally just take the time to talk to them. I promise you it'll be resolved way faster, way better. And you'll probably still disagree, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But just have a conversation with them rather than firing tweets out at each other.
Mhm.
But
There was one instance where something really amazing happened. I won't say the names of the two coaches. They're like really famous in the industry. They
sure.
both have big followings, but they're both very different politically and
Mhm.
spiritually.
Mhm.
And they got into this like back and forth on Twitter. But then later that day, they ended up getting on a phone call together. And I knew this because one of them like tweeted about it and it showed up in my feed. And after they had their phone call, one of the coaches said, wow, my perceptions of this other coach were totally wrong. And he is such an amazing, genuine guy. And I'm so glad we got on the phone. And I
Yeah.
just thought that was so cool for people who were just polar opposites politically and spiritually. And
Yeah.
they ended up becoming like close friends from the whole thing. Like that
Yeah.
is what it's all about.
Yeah. 100%. Because the amount of conversation we can have in a 20-minute conversation or a 20-minute phone call or 30-minute phone call, whatever, can get us to resolve a lot of things rather than 50 tweet threads back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back
It's
and forth.
exhausting to even
Super
read. Like,
exhausting. Yeah, literally,
Yeah.
right? And the functionality of it, sometimes I'm like, did you subtweet that? Or are you responding? Like, I don't really know. But okay, so with that, okay, so when people are on social, I'm gonna ask you how you do it. When you get ready to post something to your feed, to Twitter or X, um, do you intentionally think about what you want the audience to do? Meaning, this video I'm gonna post, it may not get a lot of likes, but I'm going for saves, or I'm going for bookmarks, or I want a lot of retweets on this one, or want a lot of people to comment on this one. Is that your intentional thought process when you get ready to post a piece of content?
That's a really good question because I honestly don't think about that stuff.
Mm,
I'm
mhm.
more so like, okay, is this something new and really educational that will get people thinking? Or is this something that would lead them to one of my podcast
Sure.
episodes or maybe learning more in my recent book? I try not to spend like too much time on social nowadays.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, like, I'm really using Twitter now to just share when my podcast episodes go up.
Yeah.
Because it's easy. Like, I go to YouTube
Easy.
and I click one button, share to Twitter, and then it's out there. I don't have to
Yeah.
really, like, write up a whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's been, like, really helpful because,
Mm,
we've talked about this before. I love
mhm.
long form content. I think people who listen to podcasts and who take time to, listen to these longer form
Yeah.
pieces of content, they want to learn deeply about a topic in strength and
Mhm,
conditioning and
mhm,
nutrition and
mhm.
performance instead of like looking at like a sound bite on Twitter or
Yeah.
like a flashy like video. Like
Yeah.
I just like want people in my audience to be there to like really learn and
Mm,
not necessarily get like a quick hit or a quick fix. And
yeah.
I want them to like make drastic changes in their lives and in their
Yeah.
performance. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Sure.
And yeah, and just on like Instagram, like what can I post like on my story or can I do a behind the scenes series that really shows like my personal life or like the process of writing that's like really interesting and people
Yeah.
can connect to.
Yeah.
And this year, like in the next few months, I'm going to do another behind the scenes series on my athletes. So
Mm,
each episode will have a feature of one of my athletes and inside their personal lives and their
mm,
struggles and
mm.
their wins in performance and then some of their failures in the gym. And we're going to show all of it. We're not
Yeah.
just going to show them like split squatting their 3RM. But I think it's important for athletes to relate to other athletes and like show the truth about performance training that it's not linear and there can be a lot of struggles. I think
Yeah.
as coaches, we tend to post like when our athletes like get that pull up or they deadlift a lot, which is amazing to show them having those
Yeah.
successes. But I think we also should consider like being real with it too.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's yeah, it's great to celebrate the wins. Yeah, it's cool like somebody get their first pull up and like we shouldn't just overlook that. Okay, cool. I got that. No problem. But the reality of that is that there's a lot of it out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not that that's not going to help somebody. I mean, I guess it will, but you're just more congratulating them rather than being educational, rather than, hey, this is something that you can apply. This is something that you can do. Because the thing with a lot of like social and what you're talking about is showing like the behind the scenes, the day in the lives and things of that nature. Um, what you get to understand even more then is the problems that arise, that you get to see the problems that arise as well. And those problems then allow you to find answers and solutions to those. So whatever one may be, I'm just going to make something up. Somebody doesn't wake up early enough to get breakfast. It's like, well, how can we overcome that? What are some things that we can do? That's very simple. I get that. But you can start to identify these potential pitfalls, these potential things that are problem sets that we can help them and communicate with them and have more conversations on with the behind the scenes and understanding it larger than, hey, they got their first pull up. Well, that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But are we helping them solve something? Are we adding to them, or are we just congratulating them? And there's nothing wrong with congratulating them, but is that helping your audience is the question.
I think that is so important. And I think like social media tends to show like all the great things going
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and athletes can get like really confused. And when they start a performance program and they do fail that first time, they're like, shocked. They're like, wait a minute, like I thought it was all supposed to be like great and me lifting heavy and like doing these great things, but it's like the process to get to that first pull up is a lot of reps where you grind out, or you might not get it one week, but then you do get it, and it becomes like more rewarding, like knowing that you went through all these ups and downs. And I think those are definitely important to share with people.
How do you to okay, I agree with you. To get your athletes to do this, to be a part of this, what is your communication like with them to say, "Hey, I wanna start this new series. I want you guys to be involved." What is that process like for you? Because if another coach is gonna implement this or say they wanna start to implement that, how did you do it in a way that was successful or that they said, "Heck yeah, I'd love to do
I don't really struggle to get them to wanna do it. Like, I'll come up with the
that?"
idea and they're like, "Oh, whoa,
Yeah,
that's so cool."
yeah,
Because I really think athletes, they like to be featured, and they
100%.
they like to share, and the fact that they've seen me share my struggles inspires them to share theirs and how they overcome them. And
Yeah,
I tell my girls, "Look, like, your story is going to inspire another girl your age, and that's what like really clicks for them."
mhm,
So I don't really like struggle too much with it. I think what coaches need to think about if they do want to implement this idea, you have to have a good camera person, or
mhm,
you have to have the skill yourself. I personally don't have the skill. I hire someone and I outsource this, and I'm very
yeah,
lucky to have a really good social media guy who does all my filming and can
mhm,
edit and put it on top of music and turn it into a story.
yeah,
So it is important to have someone to do it, because a lot of the times when he comes out, he's like filming our sessions, and like
yep,
I have to coach. So I can't be like filming and coaching at the same time.
yeah.
So I think that's important for coaches to figure out, is to outsource the videography.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you that is, do you record yourself? Do you just put a tripod up? Do you have somebody that comes and films? It's funny because I film a lot of our sessions, or I'll have an intern do it or something. But to your point, you're like, not to knock on interns, but they don't have the skill of being a camera person. They don't have the skill of like, hey, this angle looks good, your lighting is off here. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they don't think about it, whatever. But um we've been filming a decent amount, and now what that sparked is conversations with my athletes on them giving me ideas in regards of like, "Hey, you should do more like this. Hey, you should set it up like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. I'm super open to it." Because one of them does like a vlog as well. So like we
Mhm.
communicate on, and I'm like, "Hey, that was cool. Like you should do it like this, or whatever the case may be." But it allows us to have conversation with each other to say, "Hey, this is good stuff," or "Do it like this, do it like that." And we get to help each other now with content, with video, with whatever. And he's like, "Hey, I have a mic if you want to use that when you coach." And it's like we've just now been able to like kind of help each other with it rather than, some people be like, "Oh no, don't do that." And I'm like, "Heck yeah, let's video this. Let's do this. Hey guys, do it like this. Do that one more time." And they really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you will like get some interns who like do have the
Yeah.
skills, and they're like a dime a dozen and they're
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing, and it's like cool when they take initiative or like
Mhm.
give you ideas, and it's
Mhm.
like, wow, like this is super awesome and also really good for your portfolio
Yeah.
as you're starting to like grow in your career. So I think it's
Mhm.
really great. I think anyone can find maybe like a young like videographer who's just getting started.
Yeah.
Mine is a few years younger than me. He's still building, but he's incredible, and he works with a lot of like big name athletes too.
Mhm.
So
That's
he's really
huge.
big in the Tampa area, but yeah, just does amazing work. And it was funny, like actually like while I was sick during the book writing and we were filming the behind the scenes, he was really sick too. So he kind
Mm,
of had like the same chronic illness,
sure.
and he was still showing up to work crushing it. And
Yeah.
like that in of itself was like really inspiring. I'm like, dang, like you would think if someone's sick, they would want to like stay in bed all day and like mope
Yeah.
around, but that like ends up being worse for you.
Yeah.
And he like really inspired me during that time. And we would just show up into the gym and be like, well, we both feel like crap today, like hardly slept. We've had insomnia for a couple months, but hey, we're gonna
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
like really cool to just like that we were both like kind of like going through that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you strategically plan out your content? Meaning you look at it from a week perspective, a month perspective, and maybe you have different themes. Maybe you have different things like, I'm going to do, I don't know, maybe a reel here. I'm going to do a podcast drop here. I'm going to do this. And do you actively plan it out? And if so, what does that process look like for you? And do you recommend other people to do it?
Yeah, I just keep it really simple. So just like every week, my non-negotiables are post 2 podcasts a week and post 2 clips on social media, and then 1 reel a week with my athletes working out and what we do behind the scenes, and then just get on the story personally, like show my face, talk to people almost daily, if not every other day. And then on the weekends, sometimes I'll post, sometimes not. I don't really put too much pressure on myself because I'm doing things with like family and
Sure.
friends. So yeah, I try to stick to like the podcast and just like the athlete content.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think more people need to strategically plan out what they're going to post, how they're going to post it. Because if not, you're just kind of firing by the hip or shooting by the hip, if you will. And what you do there then is you have inconsistencies, or if you're not, it's kind of funny. Like I look at it as like reviewing game footage. And it's like, hey, if you go back in the last week, the last 2 weeks, the last month, look at what crushed and what didn't. And if something did crush, like for instance, maybe it's a reel, maybe it's, whatever type of content, not just the format, but the type of content as well. And then you can look forward and say, how can I reproduce something similar to this? How can I, something of that standpoint? What can I replicate? What can I do similar, whether that's format, whether that's content? Because that's what the algorithm, if you will, or your audience is telling you, hey, produce more of this. It helps you, rather than producing some stuff and it flops and you're like, well, I'm going to keep doing that. It's like, well, it's probably not the best idea, but
Yeah, I think that that's so true. And just like seeing like what your audience is engaging with the most and just staying consistent with that, and just overall staying consistent with creating and not as much consuming.
mm,
And consuming and scrolling can definitely be really distracting. And 2 hours goes by and you're like, well, what the heck happened to my day? So it can be really unproductive. And I think if more strength coaches created content rather than consume, they would get so much more done, and they would also just impact way more people.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. This episode is sponsored by TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is the #1 performance platform for strength coaches around the world. Their software provides coaches with an elevated experience when it comes to program development, data tracking, and staying connected with athletes and clients. Coaches also have access to consultations with TeamBuilder's in-house sports scientists to help manage and analyze data. Head to teambuilder.com and sign up with promo code TABLE to start your free 30-day trial. That is TeamBuilder, TeamBuildr.com, and sign up with promo code TABLE to start your free 30-day trial. Okay, so Erica, with, you know, the conversation that we've been having about social media, the thing that a lot of people want is they don't want to put a lot of effort into social, but they want the reward, the massive reward of social media. And one of the things that, at least in the strength coach community, that I see, which I disagree with, but people aren't on camera enough. And whether that's because they're afraid that people are going to judge them, they're afraid that people are going to make fun of them. But it's like you're going to get so much more value. Your audience will get so much more value when they see your face and they see and hear you communicating. But it's like, for whatever reason, I even feel this is like in the community, they're like, oh, you shouldn't put yourself out there. You shouldn't be on camera. You shouldn't, because it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about your athletes. And it's like, yeah, but if you're educating people, then you should be in front of the camera.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this one. So, I don't think every strength coach has to go on social media first and foremost,
Yeah.
especially if you're new. The last thing you need to do is like go on Instagram and try and get clients. If
Yeah.
you're new, get out in your neighborhood, and you're better off like knocking on people's doors at that point,
Hmm.
or going to speak to a local sports team and connecting with coaches and parents in the area. And I really think that's also coming from a more genuine place, because you really want to connect with people. You really want to spread your message and work with people in person first, instead of becoming this influencer who's like an online coach who can sip margaritas on the beach and make passive income, which
Yeah.
most people don't even accomplish anyway. But it's like, if
Yeah.
that's your goal, then you should really think about, okay, like, why am I doing this in the first place? And is this a really like integrous goal that I have? So I don't think every new coach has to be on Instagram to
Yeah.
get a following and to get clients. But if you have been in it a while, and you've gotten to the point where you're like a Mike Boyle or Eric Cressy, and you want to have this really educational, detail oriented podcast and platform or website and community, then yes, like get online. But you don't have to become this entertainer on Instagram or TikTok who kind of dances around and
Yeah.
points at things. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's very unproductive work, because those reels take a really long time to make.
Yeah.
I experimented with it a few years ago, and I remember it took me like an hour to make one of those. And then on top of that, you have to write your caption, which no one reads anyway. And we talked about that, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always the read caption, and it's like no one's reading that. I'm sorry. They're just
Yeah.
tapping through the story and they're forgetting about it. So I think coaches just need to understand, okay, where can I connect with people and really make an impact? And
Mhm.
more often than not, it's in your own community.
Yeah.
And it's also doing, again, that longer form content where people really want to learn. And I think podcasts are great because, sometimes people don't always want to read a long caption or a long blog, but if they're like on a walk or they're working out, people are more likely to listen to a podcast and learn some information. Or if they're taking a long road trip, people are more likely to turn on that podcast. So I think podcasts are still growing. They're not going to go away anytime soon.
Mhm.
And you definitely should start one when you've been in this for a while. I think a lot of new strength coaches
Yeah.
think that their podcast is going to be like the next best thing. Like everyone thinks their podcast is so great,
Yeah.
but you have to really have that experience under your belt and a body of work so people really respect the podcast and what you're putting out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, a couple of things. If you're just doing a reel and you say read caption below, I think that's lazy, 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 lazy because nobody's reading it. Like, there's a couple of accounts that I follow that have started doing that, and I'm like, you are discrediting yourself. Like, you are really discrediting yourself, and I start to look at you differently because you're just unwilling to put some of the hard work in for a reel and you just, oh, I'll just read caption below. It's like, no, that's stupid. Don't do
Mhm.
that. Like, that's just lazy. Even if it's trendy or whatever, it's going to go away. Just like the point crap, that stuff's gone away. Not many people are doing that still. Like, a friend of mine, she left a company and now she does TikTok videos and all this other stuff. And all she does is point. And I'm like, like, yeah, that may be cool for a month or 2 months or 6 months, but like it's not a long-term solution for you.
Mhm.
But with that, I think everybody now wants a podcast. Everybody now seems to like have a podcast, right? And it's like, to your point, if you don't have results or you aren't in the trenches where you can say, this is what we're doing every day, or this is how we're doing things, I don't think it's best for you to have one, because it's like if you're just having one just to sit and talk, well, not many people really want to hear you just sit and talk, right? Like, let's be honest. But it's like if you're actually doing things and you're actually like learning and you're actually like asking questions and you're actually attempting to get better, then okay, cool, fine. And then you can utilize that information. But I think there's a lot of people that it's just like, hey man, I don't think it's best for you to do that. And it's very time consuming. You know that, just like I know that it's very time consuming.
It is. And yes, I think having several years of coaching is really important to
Mhm.
start your podcast, because if you are someone who has a podcast where you talk about training methods, then you should have a lot of that under your belt. But I also look back, even just in my first few years of being a strength coach, I don't think me as a podcast host, I would have been able to interview someone like
Mm,
Mike Boyle or Dr. Tim Gabbett. Like,
yeah.
I don't think I would have just like known the language and been able to articulate myself enough. So I think if you want to interview like these bigger name people who are really like leading the industry, you have to like be mature in your profession as well, so you don't say anything stupid.
Mhm. Or just so you can have intelligent questions that actually get them going and
Yeah.
actually foster intellectual thought process rather than just, so what are the top three things you dislike the most? And it's like, okay, well, that's not, a very difficult thing. It's, from that standpoint. But okay, so from a social media standpoint, do you have a rhyme or reason in regards of like how much you post, how frequently you post? Do you mix it up between reels, pictures? Is that a thought process? Or for you, is it just here's, I just kind of, post whatever I want to, kind of whenever I want to? Or are you looking at time? That's a big thing. If you follow people that have huge followings, they talk to you so much about the time of the day you post and the first 3 seconds and the retention graphs and all that stuff. Is that stuff you're interested in at all as well, or not so much?
I don't have a social media strategy. I know a lot of social media managers and
Yeah.
business owners would be like, you need to post every day at 1 p.m. because that's when the most people are online, or you need to mix it up and do reels with the music that's trending so you
Mhm.
get views and engagement. I don't do any of that stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm still okay. The world is still spinning. And I'll only post if I have a podcast episode
Mhm.
out and I just want to share a clip and then link it to the full episode and just let people know, hey, it's up. Go to my YouTube if you want to like really learn more. And
Mhm.
those are the people I want on my channel, like the people who really want to learn and actually listen to an hour-long podcast from an expert in the industry. So, yeah, I'm just pretty okay with not posting every day. And actually, I took like 4 or 5 days off from Instagram. And what was really interesting was when I actually came back, my engagement soared. Like, I
Really?
had thousands of story views, and I was like, that's crazy. And I think a lot of these social media companies lie to you and like say you have to post every day to like get your views up. But when I post every day, everything kind of is like very low. But when
Mm.
I like go away for a while, then come
Mhm.
back, then
Mhm.
everyone's like, whoa, she's back. So that's been interesting too.
Yeah.
And I don't have to spend as much time on it, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And, I've just gotten okay with not being on as much. And part of it's because I'd rather spend my time creating things for like my current athletes. Like right now, I'm putting together a whole curriculum for my remote athletes and Tampa athletes. And it takes me like several hours a day, and just finding creative ways to like serve them beyond just like our 1 hour training sessions, and talk about things in a curriculum that have to do with like recovery and nutrition and things that they're not really learning from their coaches or parents or school. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I also spend a lot of time reading and hanging out with my husky and
Yeah.
just kind of being in peace. And
Yeah.
I'm still surviving over here, and it's okay. And I just want to encourage strength coaches, like new and veteran and everything in between. You don't need Instagram and TikTok as much as you think. And
Yeah.
I even wrestled with the idea the other day, because I saw one fitness expert that I follow and that I really respect. She does a lot on teaching trainers how to do speaking engagements
Sure.
and articulate themselves. And
Hmm.
she posted the other day, she was like, I'm getting off Instagram. You can find me at my email. I do one-on-one coaching and speaking courses, and that's it. And I was like, dang, it would be pretty cool to get off Instagram. And I am starting to like toy around with that
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
because people know where to find me. They have my email, they have my website, they can visit me in Tampa anytime. So I was just like really thinking like, oh man, that would be a pretty good life because then you're not constantly checking the app, and because it is addictive for everyone. I don't care who you are, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool of her.
Yeah. I think I think you see more people trending that way. One of the podcasts I listen to, the host he's like, I don't post at all. I'm hardly on there. He's like, I might post twice to my story in a week, like, I mean, granted, he's got like millions of followers and stuff. And so that's cool. But to the point is like, I think you are starting to see a shift to unfiltered, um, not buttoned up, less time on social platforms because people are, they want to engage in person more. They want to go and do things more. They don't want to be sucked into an app scrolling and consuming all the time rather than going out and doing. And then when you do go out and do, and then you do come on the app and you're like, hey, I got something to say, it's actually valuable and it's meaningful because like you are actually doing, rather than I'm just sitting here consuming. Why isn't my life getting better? Why are all these people so amazing? And you play the comparison game and all this other stuff. I haven't really been posting that much, honestly. Like I think I probably I might post twice a week now. I don't know.
And
Um,
you're thriving. I mean, you're still, you're afloat, you're here, you're killing it, like whatever you want to call it. Like
yeah,
it is possible,
yeah,
like yeah, I feel bad for people that think that's what they have to do
mhm,
to be a successful strength coach.
yeah,
And I think it's easy to get sucked into that and forget your why of why you're a coach. And it's like people get sucked into the whole, well, I need to impress strangers on the internet and get online clients, when it's like you got athletes right next door in your city that are ready to work with you. You just don't get out and talk to people.
yeah, yeah. That's a big thing. Get out and talk to people. Go to different gyms. Go to different places. There's so many strength coaches that like I work out in my gym because it's the best, and it's like, yeah, but you don't see anybody there. You don't meet anybody there. Nobody knows you there. You know what I'm saying? It's like get out and go a different place. Go do something different. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of them that.
Another thing I'll say is just a way to connect with your community and just to enjoy what you do as a coach. I really like to go watch my athletes play
Mm,
and just like show my support, see how everything's translating to the field, and just like really cheer for them. But also like when you go, you hang out with the parents, you sit in the stands with them, you might like meet other people. It's just so beneficial all around. Like there's nothing like bad about it. I think it's always good to like get out, watch your athletes play, and like get to sporting events.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The more you can do that, I think it just helps you develop a deeper relationship with them. And it helps you develop the ability contextually to speak on certain circumstances in the game. Hey, do you remember when this happened? And blah, 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 whatever. Oh, yeah. Well, hey, this is why we're training that. Oh, okay, cool. Right. Like it makes that connection from that. And you can even do like a content piece on that, right? Because understanding the game and knowing the game and how to train for that is something that's really important, right? It's like, how are we helping these athletes get better at their sport? Well, one of the ways we can do that is look at the sport and then piece together our training with the sport, whether it's something they're not getting or whether it's something that they need to get more of. That's a piece of content. There you go, right? And it's like, whether that's you coaching, teaching, having a conversation, whatever the case may be, but it's like, that's an instance that not anybody else can replicate because it's specific to you, your athlete, their game, and the context of that one game. which
Yeah, it's super important to get out and support your athletes. And again, like if you spend an hour making a reel on Instagram, that's an hour you could have gotten out and supported someone and gotten to one of these sporting events. It's just really sad. Like it's just sad that people think that in order to do well, you have to do all that. And I think I call it unproductive productivity.
yeah,
People
yeah.
think they're being productive, but they're really not.
Yeah, and if you look at it from the aspect of this, like, okay, so like what is the purpose of posting on social media then, right? To, attract what? Engagement in the form of likes, follows, shares, comments, and then hopefully to attract clients at some point, right? If that is your goal. So then that is sales. So if you're doing all that and it's not registering in the form of a bigger following, more engagement, or sales, then it's unproductive in the grand scheme of what you are trying to accomplish, right?
Mhm.
Like, because if you weren't trying to accomplish those things, you wouldn't care how much or less or not at all you post to begin with. And you wouldn't care about making it look pretty and nice. And you'd just be like, I'm just throwing it up just to throw it up,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think the world can definitely go on without Instagram and TikTok for sure.
Well, it has before and it definitely will when when it gets either removed or a new platform or whatever.
Mhm.
I think people are just kind of sick of it. After a while, it gets to be too much, and it's to a certain extent, it's unsustainable, right? Like I was just having a conversation with a friend, great friend of mine, and he was talking about how, oh man, we can pay these people to do all of our content for us, and they'll cut it up, and they're going to do so many long forms and so many reels, and it's only X amount per month. And I'm like, Jesus, like that's incredible. And it's like, oh my gosh, how cool that would be. And I'm like, yeah, but do you realize that's your entire day of
Huh.
like creating all of these things just to give these people this stuff for,
Yeah,
what purpose, right? I was like, you can do that. I'm not going to, but if you want to, you go right ahead.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of these like social media managers are a huge expense.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to really outweigh the cost versus benefits of having someone do all that content for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of strength coaches will hire people like that just so they can get volume of content out. Um, and I don't think you necessarily need volume of content.
Yeah.
You need quality content. And actually my husband, he hardly is on social media. He works with baseball pitchers and does like load management, but he's really good at like video production, and he
Sure.
made this amazing YouTube video on how pitchers shouldn't be using ratings of perceived exertion. And he had like all these like overlays and like data, and like it was just so well put together. And he hasn't posted on YouTube in months. And that video got close to 5,000 views within a week. And
Wow.
I'm like, see, like you don't
Yeah.
have to like always be posting. Like just
Yeah.
make something that's gonna just blow people away where they actually learn something new.
hmm Yeah, exactly. Quality over quantity. Because at a certain point, the quantity becomes junk volume, if you will. And it's like, well, would you rather put out 10 pieces of, outstanding stuff or 100 pieces of pretty mediocre subpar stuff, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, let's just do 10,
Yeah.
and it probably gives you a lot more life back rather than sucked into cameras and computer screens and recording, and now you gotta learn what is it, CapCut, and
Mhm.
Video Premiere Pro, or all these other editing tools that people now take on as like, I got to learn all this stuff. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have to do that. But if you want to, feel free. So,
Mhm.
but Erica, where can people find you online? Speaking of online, but where can people find you online? How can they get in contact with you? For those that haven't heard your first episode, so how can they kind of get in contact with you now?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter mainly at Fit Soccer Queen. And then from there, you'll be able to see the website link in my bio. And my email is fitsoccerqueen@gmail.com.
Yeah, awesome. Erica is a fantastic resource. Her website is amazing. I think I've probably complimented you like 10 times on it, but she does a great job with it. Her YouTube is really good too. And you're a author. So for those that haven't checked out her books, go check her books out. Just recently released a second one too. Is that right?
Yes, Female Athlete High Performance, and it's on Amazon.
Let's go. And the first one is still on Amazon too.
Yes.
Awesome. So go get those books. If you are a female soccer athlete primarily, because that's your primary target audience, but anybody can read those and get information from them, and apply it to their athletes for sure. So, guys, Erica, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you and your time. I appreciate your insights as always. And you do have a podcast for those that don't know. Erica also has a podcast, so go check that out. Where can they get that at?
That's only on YouTube, and it's the Soccer Queens podcast.
Look at that. Let's go. So, but
Just
Erica,
one platform.
one platform, one channel, one Twitter and YouTube. You can
Yeah.
find Erica there. But Erica, no, I do appreciate your time, you coming on, and continuing to move this forward, and help people and kind of let people be like, hey, man, you can do things much better, more efficient, save your time, and enjoy life a lot more.
Absolutely.
Good. Awesome. Well, guys, we'll catch y'all on the next one. So appreciate it. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.